Screw it, I'm starting now. And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a PMQ response, and we're starting 10 minutes early because reasons. It's been a long day, okay. I need to plug this on Discord. Done. It's been a bit of an odd day. I thought I'd just start that now, and I'm going to address a few of the odd occurrences soon enough. Am I actually? Oh, I am actually fantastic. I'm live. Fantastic. PMQs, unsurprisingly, is all about that Brexit. So yeah, that's going to be fun. Although there are some rather interesting sources we get to look at. Watch this while your sleeping pill kicks in. Oh dear God. And there I was thinking my voice was enough. Anyway. Good evening to everyone. Hello, Irate Bear, and to everyone in the chat. Should we just dive right in? I do want to, before we even start this one, make it a little point. I don't mind when politicians stand up and commemorate something or pay respect to something. But it's almost... it happens every week now. To the point where I get the feeling every single day of the year is going to be national or international blah 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 day. And I just can't be asked. This week it's national or international or some kind of memorial for Holocaust and genocide stuff. Very important, which is why I took it so seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Turn that up.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure members across the House will wish to join me in marking Holocaust Memorial Day this Sunday. It is an opportunity for us to remember all those who suffered in the Holocaust and in subsequent genocides around the world. And it is a reminder that we must all challenge and condemn prejudice and hatred wherever it is found.
That's an interesting point to make. Firstly, it's an obvious point to also point out that when Corbyn will inevitably side with Theresa May on that, I don't know, there's a somewhat humour about it, but pointing out when there's prejudice and racism. Now, last week, or was it the week before, a politician stood up and asked Theresa May about South Africa seizing farms from white farmers because they are white. Sorry, I'll say it correctly. White. Now that had me thinking, surely you would then condemn this. Or are you so stuck, are you balls deep in, is it Ramaphosa? Ramaphosa? Is that his name? Whatever the president of South Africa is. Is it still Zuma? Isn't that a yoga thing? Doesn't matter. If you are so keen to condemn any kind of actual racism, you do that. Even if it is against them pesky white people.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Stephen Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I associate myself with the comments the Prime Minister just made in relation to Holocaust Memorial Day. May I also say, as a proud Scot, that the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is the most successful political union that the world has ever known.
Yeah, suck on that, Federated States of Micronesia.
That said, does the Prime Minister agree with me that when Nicola Sturgeon demands a second independence referendum,
which hopefully she won't get, because honestly, you had one, what, 3-4 years ago? Come on. The majority of your people voted to remain in the United Kingdom. Yes, on a prerequisite, we stayed in the EU. But I don't think they're going to be so keen to leave when they know they're not going to be able to get into the EU, because the EU themselves, a couple of the nations within the EU, have already vetoed it.
Only 4 years after we had the last one,
4, okay.
That the UK government should side with the majority of the people of Scotland and firmly tell her no.
There's something very satisfying about hearing a Scotsman say no. Not sure what it is. Why is the chat... Hang on a second. I will fix this. We'll try and avoid dead air for a second, shall we? I'm not that bad. Am I? Maybe. Who knows? Okay, my tablet refuses to play ball. Fine, we'll just keep going then.
Can I say, my honourable friend is absolutely right. As he points out, Scotland held a referendum in 2014. It was legal, it was fair, it was decisive, and the people clearly voted for Scotland to remain part of the United Kingdom. But more than that, at the last general election, the people of Scotland again sent a very clear message that they do not want a second divisive referendum.
I think that applies to most people generally when they've already had one. We're quite a lazy country, or union even. We don't really like voting. It's why we wait 5 years to have a general election, as opposed to the 2 years, 4 years, 6 years in America and whatever else it is around the rest of the world, I guess. As far as I'm concerned, if we had a second if Scotland had a second, let's go with Scotland first. If Scotland had a second referendum, I think it would undermine what the first vote did. I think, yes, there needs to be a negotiation of some kind to reassure Scotland that their interests will be protected, since a lot of it was on a prerequisite that they would still be in the EU. However, they are a part of a union, and, well, their voice would be less heard if they were in a different one. And I also think in the UK, if we had a referendum as a whole, like some are trying to push for still, because there are more young people, and because reasons, is a really insulting thing to do, especially to those who voted but are no longer here. Like, they've made their decision. You must respect theirs like you respect those of the living.
But the SNP, sadly, are out of touch with the people of Scotland. They haven't yet heard that message. The last thing we want is a second independence referendum. The United Kingdom should be pulling together, not being driven apart.
I'll give you a piggyback bear, don't you worry.
Jeremy Corbyn!
I'll be your stallion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sunday is Holocaust Memorial Day, a time for us all to reflect on the horrors of genocide and to recommit to never again to allow the poison of anti-Semitism and racism to disfigure our society in any way. And the Prime Minister was also right to acknowledge the other genocides that have happened since the Second World War.
Is that dog hair on his collar? Doesn't matter. Tatty suit, regardless. I think it's something odd about the leader of the Labour Party, a party that has become a bit, well, split, in the sense that many believe the party is anti-Semitic and they're not doing anything to tackle it. Yes, some members have been suspended for things, but they've then been welcomed back into the fold. I'm waiting to see how long it takes until they get Kate Ossomer back into the shadow cabinet, after she tried to use her position to protect her son from being charged and convicted for drug offences, or was it stealing? Let's go with cliché black person offence at this point.
It's up to us to try to prevent such horrors ever happening again anywhere in the world. Mr. Speaker, after the overwhelming defeat of her deal, the Prime Minister says she wants solutions to the Brexit crisis that command sufficient support in the House.
Yeah, so she only needs about, 100 votes, 120 people to sway? That's not too bad. I mean, that's possible, isn't it? Maybe? Meh.
The Chancellor and the Business Secretary agree, and I quote, there is a large majority in the Commons opposed to no deal.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you take it off the table, because even if a deal gets through the Commons, you then have to spend the transition period negotiating the rest of the vagueness that we saw in the, quotes, deal, to cement and make it more specific. So, taking no deal off the table means that the EU have all the cards, all the power, and we're there like, ah, shit, we don't even have a good poker face now. What are you supposed to do with that? And the answer is nothing. Also, by the way, having to read the chat via my tablet, because apparently the chat that was working when I started the stream is no longer working. I have no idea why. Maybe it'll work later, who knows. I tend to take the opinion of no deal should stay on the table. Because if this deal doesn't get through and we end up crashing out, then no deal, it's there. It happens. It is an inevitability if a deal cannot be agreed upon. Now, the deal has been agreed upon between the government and the EU, just not by MPs in that chamber, many of whom are pushing for no deal, many of whom are pushing for a second referendum, many are pushing for a vote next Tuesday to rule out no deal, which I believe Jacob Rees-Mogg today said, should that go through, the Queen should call to dissolve Parliament, or suspend Parliament, sorry, because it would be a massive overreach by Parliament to take away any bargaining chip that the current government has to negotiate a good deal with the EU, which I also find fascinating because the EU's deal with us, the new one, it's a bit of an embarrassment really, because it just ties us to them. We can't trade abroad, and yet one of the main focal questions he's going to ask is going to be about, well, the customs union, and it's kind of sad.
So will the Prime Minister listen to her own cabinet members and take no deal off the table?
What I, members of the Cabinet and the whole government are doing is working to ensure that we leave the European Union with a deal. And that is the way to avoid no deal.
Oh, that's a point. Somebody, is it Yvette Cooper? Either she's trying to have it so no deal, she's trying to put a vote forward so that either no deal's taken off by vote in Parliament, or extending Article 50. Now, I'm not totally against extending Article 50 if you don't believe if you don't want to crash out, but based on the fact that no deal, based on the fact that extending it would mean it has to be agreed upon with the EU though, which they've already said no to, because they won't negotiate anymore because they believe this is the only deal worth having. So really, you don't have that option either. You don't have any option but this deal or no deal. It's tragic.
Leave the European Union with a deal. But I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that what I have been wanting to do, and have been doing with members across this House, is sit down and talk about how we can secure support in this House for a deal.
Oh, excuse me. Irate Bay, you're quite right, he was. But based on what he is spinning now, either he is playing party politics to a T, is being manipulated by someone, which some people believe that Dawn Butler is basically his carer and puppet master, which is hilarious. It's token black on his right, our left. They think that she is, because there are a couple of times when he's gone to say something and she has stopped him. We can't tell why that is. I guess it's yeah, it's just down to party politics, really.
The Right Honourable Gentleman has been willing to sit down with Hamas, Hezbollah and the IRA without preconditions.
Oh, excuse me again. I'm very sorry about that. To cement this little remark, I have a video here on Facebook I'm going to show you. So we're going to press play on this.
Mr. Corbyn, you didn't actually answer my question. You have openly supported the IRA in the past.
There.
And I can give you an example. Attending a commemoration for the 8 IRA men who were killed at Loughgall. Now, in your words, it was to honour them. Maybe you can share with the electorate why those IRA men were actually killed.
The commemoration I think you're referring to was a meeting I was at in London where there was a period of silence for everyone who had died in Northern Ireland.
Right. And then there's this video, which is the most well-known one, which I'll turn the volume up on.
I want to first of all say thank you everyone for being here tonight, and say that tomorrow evening it will be my pleasure and my honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking. I'd also invited friends from Hamas to come and speak as well. Unfortunately, the Israelis would not allow them to travel here, so it's going to be only friends from Hezbollah. So far as I'm concerned, that is absolutely the right function of using parliamentary facilities to invite people from other parts of the world.
Yeah, many people disagree with that. I wonder why. The chat's still not working here. How strange. Never mind. I'll link the videos and all sources. I'll link them afterwards because I've got a few and I haven't linked them.
Yet he won't meet me to talk about Brexit. In this case, he's neither present nor involved.
This is the one actual, like, real solid point she had throughout all the PMQs, because he has met with all three without preconditions. But he will not meet with Theresa May unless she, as a precondition, takes no deal off the table. By the way, I'm just going to point this out now. This just bugs me. Notice how all of those MPs are dressed quite smartly, right? Except for Token, wearing blue trousers that are brighter than, well, brighter than most blue things, really. And then these red trainers in the corner here. I hope you got a doctor's note for those, motherfucker. Why are Labour front bench so fucking scraggly? You gotta look professional if you want to lead. Well, unless you're me, of course. Point is, he will say that he had agreed to a while back, and that's all well and good, but that was during the negotiating process. It was down to the government to do it then, and they're well within their right to reject it, which he'll know this. It's not a valid point, really. When asked to now, to get this over the line, he declined because he wants what he wants, preconditions, which I don't think he wants, because I think it's this person here who's giving him orders.
Mr. Speaker, actually, I did reach out to the Prime Minister last September when I offered to discuss our deals with her.
And your 6 Labour tests, wasn't it? 6 tests for Brexit. Oh, dear God, that stuff was cringe.
And it appears that, Mr. Speaker, that while the door to her office may well be opened, apparently the minds inside it are completely closed.
He could say that to a mirror and it would still be true.
She has shown no flexibility whatsoever in taking no deal off the table. The Chancellor...
Because no deal has to stay on the table. Also, no deal is an eventuality that you cannot avoid. So, say we get to the final day, right? And no deal has been reached. But we can't crash out because you guys have said we can't crash out. So what happens the day after, when we are no longer members of the EU and have no deal? I'll give you a hint. It starts with N and ends with O'Deal.
Reassured business that amendments would be put down that would have the effect of removing the threat of no deal, which is binding and effective.
I don't know why he stands up for business so much. Because business only wants us to stay in the EU. There is no version of us leaving the EU where they will not moan like cunts. Like little bitches. Either way they're going to complain. Either way they are going to... they're going to threaten to cut jobs, and it is a fact with leaving the EU that is going to happen.
Given that those amendments are now tabled, will the Prime Minister confirm that if passed, they would rule out no deal?
This is the amendments Yvette Cooper is trying to get through, and quite frankly it better not, because honestly that is so pathetic. If you were so keen on removing the government's ability to negotiate, you should have tried to pass a motion that made it so the government showed everyone publicly what its negotiating strategy was from the start. But find some way that the EU doesn't know about it so that they then themselves don't know what we're going to try and do, so that then we get nothing. You do realise how weak this particular argumentation is, right, Jeremy? I hope you do. I really do. Because it sounds like you're trying to poke holes at things, but you don't know how to fix it. You're just poking a hole. I can't tell if you want to actually lead the country or just be a cunt.
The Right Honourable Gentleman, what we have seen is amendments seeking to engineer a situation where Article 50 is extended. Now, that does not solve the issue. There will always be a point of decision, and the decision remains the same. No deal, a deal, or no Brexit. I'm delivering on Brexit. I want to do it with a deal. Why won't he come and meet me and talk about it?
You've got to admit, even though she's weak, at least she's been consistent in wanting to talk to him. Him not showing any sign or inclination that he would hold a discussion with her makes him look weak. Makes him look a bit sad.
The only consistency in her strategy seems to be running down the clock on this by threatening no deal.
But you're the one not turning up to meetings. If she can't discuss with you and your party how best to get this deal across the line, then who's the one actually running down the clock? She's reaching out, which is actually quite a grown-up thing to do, and you're acting like a pouty child. Do we have to get you a Happy Meal? I hear they got Pokemon cards in them at the moment. Would you like a, let's see, a 110 Chansey? Would you want? It's a shiny. I can give you that if you want.
As an alternative to her dead deal.
I know he calls it a dead deal, but I just wanted to point out that it's a shit deal. I agree. But and Plan B for that deal is also a shit deal. I will point that out now. However, it's important to point out she wants to get that deal across the line with your help. You are refusing to help. You don't need a precondition, by the way. You don't have to have a precondition on the table that no deal will be taken off. You just have to put on the table what you want, which I know you're going to say is no deal taken off the table, but that's not a part of the deal. What in the deal do you want that will get that deal through Parliament? That is what is important. Now you keep then using buzzwords. A comprehensive customs union. Forgetting that the EU has ruled out a customs union with the United Kingdom because that is a perk of being a member of the EU. Access to the single market, which you only get if you are a member of the EU, which the EU themselves have stated. Your positions are basically to remain, but you are arguing from a position of, well, I accept the result, but I'm actually just going to flip my middle finger off at them because we're for the many, not the few. 17.4 million, everyone.
BI, Mr. Speaker, says the projected impact of no deal on the UK economy would be devastating.
So would any of the deals, remember? Do you remember those impact assessments that said we would be worse off or less wealthier than we would have been if we had stayed in the EU? Again, there is no version of this where we come out better off, according to a number of sources and impact assessments. This is not a valid argument, especially as a number of those impact assessments were disproved or debunked within, like, what, an hour?
Leaving with no deal would be a hammer blow to manufacturing industry in this country, costing jobs and damaging living standards. Last week, the Justice Secretary was asked if he ruled out a customs union. He said, "I don't think we can." However, the same day, the Leader of the House said that we cannot be in a customs union. Can the Prime Minister be clear? Does her government rule out a customs union with the European Union?
I'd point out that it would have to rule it out, so I'm going to answer on behalf of her before she gives her politician answer. The government would have to rule out no deal, because if they didn't, they'd have to rule out a customs union, sorry, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to trade with nations outside of the EU. Now, yes, the position you are holding is to protect jobs in this country, and the only way to secure that is by staying in the single market and customs union in the EU, which means basically no Brexit, which is the third option Theresa May presented. However, we voted leave. We knew the risk. Yes, it's not great. However, we wanted the freedom and the opportunity. We wanted to bring certain things down, immigration being one, although I will argue we do need doctors. I'll do that in a video sometime. I don't know where I'm going with that. Fuck it. Let's continue.
The right right honourable gentleman talks about a customs union, and I note that he's put an amendment down which refers to, well, the Labour Party used to refer to a comprehensive customs union, then it was a new customs union, now it's a permanent customs union. But the question...
Ooh, a permanent customs union. That's not good. That's not good at all. Then we can't trade. What's the point of leaving if we can't forge our own path?
The question... I'm happy to sit down and talk to him about what he means by that. Does he mean accepting the common external tariff?
Okay, I have sources for this. Where is it? Nope. Right, the common customs tariff or external tariff is basically a single external tariff applied by member states for imports coming from third countries, which would then include the UK in that. It is quite lengthy. I'm not going to summarise. It's kind of stupid. But I do tend to agree with the idea of having a set of rules within the EU member states, which up until about 2 days ago hadn't occurred to me. Calling members to the EU states and not countries. Can't tell if it's because it has a nice ring to it or because it was a preconceived idea of creating a state.
Does he mean accepting the common commercial policy?
Right, the common commercial policy is the policy whereby the EU member states delegate authority to the European Commission to negotiate external trade relations with the aim of increasing trade among themselves and their bargaining power vis-à-vis the rest of the world. It's locally necessitated by the existence of the customs union, which in turn is also the foundation upon which the single market and monetary union were then later established. Yeah. There's more.
Does he mean accepting the Union Customs Code?
Union Customs Code, right, where's that? Oh god, this one was long as well. Okay, it's a key element of the ongoing actions. It provides a framework for customs rules and procedures in the EU customs territory, which is adapted to modern trade realities and modern communication tools. The e-document for this, by the way, is several hundred pages. I cannot for the life of me be bothered to read all of that. Again, another very simple process involving trade, which I kind of was okay with, because that was the whole point of the EU to begin with, wasn't it? To trade. There's more of this, by the way.
Does he mean accepting? Does he mean accepting? Does he mean accepting EU state aid rules?
Okay, EU state aid rules is quite simple actually. Where is it? Yeah, it's basically it's illegal for EU countries to give financial help to some companies and not others in a way which would distort fair competition. This help is called state aid, and the rules barring it are enforced by the European Commission and national courts. Now, the state aid itself is governed by the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. The rules say that the European Commission must give prior clearance to any state aid, and that countries must not grant the aid until it is cleared by the Commission. If aid is granted without permission, it will almost always automatically be deemed to be unlawful, and then the organisation that received it can be ordered to pay it back. I'd like to see them force companies to do that. Although this does raise questions about helping formerly nationalised services by giving money to some private companies that constantly need to be bailed out. It does raise some questions. Where were we? Oh yes, let's continue. I think my tablet died. Oops, I can't see the chat now. What's going on here? Hang on, I'm going to fix this. YouTube, give me my chat. Because apparently it refuses to work on where's the chat? There it is, pop out. Right, let's drag you over here. Right, I now see you. Hello chat, I'm very sorry for not noticing you. But apparently, the internet doesn't want you to be seen.
If he won't talk about it, there's only one conclusion. He hasn't got a clue.
Mr. Speaker, my question was, does the Prime Minister rule in or rule out a customs union?
No.
It's not complicated.
Well, she hasn't answered this question. I tend to take the stance that yes, she hasn't answered it, and that's kind of silly. But I don't think she has to take a position, because ruling out no deal seems kind of pointless if you run out of time. Yes, run. Hello to everyone. Again, sorry. Read the few hundred pages, dog that. Fuck off. I'm not reading shit.
She could have said yes, she could have said no. Mr. Speaker, it's a key part of what Labour is putting forward, and it's backed by the TUC.
So, all the unions want us to remain in the EU. That's why they're pushing for policies that essentially keep us in the EU or tied to the EU in some way.
Representing millions of workers. By the CBI, representing thousands of businesses. It's backed by the First Ministers of Wales and Scotland.
Lol.
And indeed by many members of her own party, including apparently her own Chief of Staff. So can the Prime Minister explain why is she ruling out a customs union as a solution to the crisis?
Because the EU ruled it out.
She could, for once, actually answer the question.
Did he have to take a breath after every word? Can you imagine how annoying that is? Honestly, I can't be bothered. I get the point, he wants us to rule it out, but now he's stuck on the question. It's like he's malfunctioned. If she's not going to provide an answer to it, and now you're what? You're what? You're kind of stuck. So what do? Might I suggest you then ask questions on more pertinent issues? You're so keen on talking about the country as a whole, you'll get chat all excited. Oh dear God. Odds of no deal of Parliament being prorogued. Prorogued? Is that a word? Prorogued? I've never heard of that word.
Perhaps I can try to help the right honourable gentleman here.
Lol.
Because I think when many people talk about a customs union, what they want to ensure is that businesses can export to the EU without facing tariffs, quotas, or rules of origin checks. Now, I agree. And the deal we negotiated delivers just that.
No, your deal actually keeps us tied to the EU in a way that many people don't like. Your deal creates a backstop with Ireland, which has become the boogeyman in the entire deal. If we accept your deal, we have to renegotiate sovereignty over Gibraltar, a state that has belonged to us, well, become a crown dependency, longer with us than it has even existed with Spain. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be leaving. And no deal is an option. It's an option that scares a lot of people, so you'd think they'd take this shit seriously.
But it also allows us to have an independent trade policy and do our own trade deals with the rest of the world. The benefits of a custom union and the benefits of our own trade policy.
Actually, in the chat, you made a valid point. Spain isn't even a country. You're quite right. It's a bunch of regions bound by a constitution with a superseding government that somehow rules over it like it is a country. It's not a country. Fuck you, Spain. Free Catalonia, everyone.
Mr. Speaker, the International Trade Secretary promised 40 trade agreements, the second after Brexit.
Yeah, that was a bit of an overstatement by this guy, because when he was asked about it on a morning show, he couldn't actually answer the question. And I think that was a bit silly, because it's a flex, isn't it? To say our government is defective. My apologies if I insulted your country at all. But your Prime Minister is quite special. Is it Prime Minister or President? Doesn't matter. We've heard the talks about the trade deals for a while, to the point where many have just said, okay, well, if you say you can get them, can you give us some kind of proof? Because I think we're getting to the point now where we would need some. I think that's a fairly reasonable position to have. But they're not showing anything. It's like Jeremy Corbyn calling for a general election. Okay, first question. How are you going to negotiate a deal on Brexit when the EU have said they won't renegotiate? Go.
And this morning, he couldn't name a single one. His own business minister said he was not impressed by sham trade agreements and not prepared to sell business down the river for other people's political dogma.
That's because he's a Remainer.
So why is the Prime Minister prepared to sell people's jobs and living standards down the river rather than negotiate a customs union that would be part of a sensible deal for the future?
Because the EU won't negotiate a deal. Because we're leaving the EU and everyone's going to get hit in some way. Because to remain a part of the customs union would be to remain a part of the EU. Bye-bye, Zombie Teddy. And quite frankly, constantly having to bleat on about how we should renegotiate a deal when they have said there will be no more renegotiating of the deal. How deaf are you? Remember earlier when I said you should say something to yourself in the mirror? Yeah? Because you're not listening? Yeah, this is one of those times where you need to listen. They will not renegotiate.
The deal? Now, the deal that we negotiated did protect jobs, and it was rejected by this House. There are some specific issues. There are some specific issues that
backstop mostly.
Members across this House have raised.
With Labour, it's a case of, well, we don't want to leave anyway, so, you know, fuck it.
In relation to that deal, and we work on those. We've already responded on a number of issues, on parliamentary involvement, on workers' rights, on citizens' rights, as a result of the conversations that we've had with members of this House. But what we want to ensure is that we get a deal that does protect jobs. But the right honourable gentleman is doing exactly what he always does. He just stands up, uses these phrases, and the honest answer is I don't think he knows what those phrases mean.
Wait, I left the stream? Wait, I left the stream? Am I still not running? Oh, my stream's red. Look at that. Glitch in Matrix. Right, well, let's see if we can fix that. It's probably because I've got too many things going on in the background. I do apologise. Let's close Discord. Let's close that. That is... Oh, that is glitchy, isn't it? Right, let's have a look over here. Fuck it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to close all these tabs. You know what? I'm going to close all of this. All of it can go. Oh dear. Oh, we're back, are we? Okay. YouTube is... Well, yeah, I think OBS is. What's going on here? I'm very confused. I think my internet died for a second. Or is dying. I can't tell. I only have, for those who are interested, one window open, and it's the one with this video on it. So I'm not entirely... Stop touching it, it worked fine. It's very hard to tell... because I get trolled a fair amount because reasons. Anyway, let's continue.
Of those phrases are: we will be protecting jobs in the UK with a good trade relationship with the European Union and enhancing and increasing jobs in the UK. And by the way, I see the right honourable gentleman hasn't referred to the employment figures this week, where we see employment up in this country as a result of this government.
Yeah, there are some new statistics out this week that show unemployment, especially from the age range of 16 to 24, has gone down to, I believe, 4%, which is pretty good. Jeremy Corbyn's about to say something. Oh, fucking hell, I've just realised. The person sat next to Corbyn here looks like a discount Weird Al. Like, your trousers don't fit. Your shirt looks creepy as fuck. Your hair's fucked. Your shoes are fucked. Are you male or female? I can't tell. Doesn't matter really. But either way, if you're gonna wear a supposedly smart outfit, get the fucking thing ironed and put on some shoes and socks. Fucking filthy. The resolution. What the fuck? Oh dear. Well, it's green on my end now, so it's not too bad. I do apologise for the resolution. I have no control over that. It may be a trap, yeah. What he's about to say something that I want to talk about because he raises a really interesting point. Corbyn is about to, but there's a part of it that really confuses me. But I want to pause and look at some of these faces. You've got Diane Abbott's very stiff upper lip. McDonald looking probably at an expanded version of Mao's book. This person using her hand to gesture, fuck knows what. These two people preparing notes for Corbyn, and then Weird Al.
Mr. Speaker, what the Prime Minister clearly didn't have time to mention was the rising levels of in-work poverty, personal debt, and the problems people face in surviving at work.
Problems people face in surviving at work. Does anyone in the chat know what that means? Problems people face while surviving in work. I have no idea what that... Maybe that might be a reference to workers' rights. But honestly, I have no idea. So I do want to obviously address the other two. In-work poverty, yes, cost of living is tricky, difficult. I saw a video today by, was it Tom Stockdale? He did a freestyle song, got noticed by KSI, and now his life's getting better. And he's been through similar things I have. Lengthy unemployment, living hand to mouth. You know, it's not easy. But he uses it to make this grand point, but then the cost of living is one of the major issues. Who's token on the left? Dawn Butler. That is Dawn Butler. It means an average day at work, yeah. In-work poverty is a bit of a weird one because, well, workplace death rate, maybe. I guess it depends on which occupation. The personal debt one is another interesting point because that is entirely circumstance-based. It could be caused by in-work poverty. How you've determined poverty, though, is... Well, that depends on whether you're referring to absolute poverty or relative. If you earn enough to just about pay your bills, buy some food, and maybe once every so often, you know, get a new set of tyres on your car, is that poverty by his standards or someone else's standards? This is where it becomes quite subjective. And like Theresa May's Brexit deal, pretty vague, to be honest. But I really want to know what he means by problems people face while at work, because it's so vague. I have no idea, and it sounds like a point of, I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to get at. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you guys will be able to shed some light on it. I hope you can, because I have no idea. It's a trap.
Mr. Speaker, the door of office might be open, but the minds are closed, and the Prime Minister is clearly not listening.
Irony there.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order. People making an extraordinary noise from a sedentary position haven't got the slightest prospect of being called to ask a question unless they're on the paper. If they realise that and recognise their own folly. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He'll be gone by the summer, by the way, Burko. He'll be more than likely standing down, and then he may not get his peerage, which most speakers do, virtually all have actually, get a lifetime peerage into the House of Lords. They normally leave this chamber and go there. Great tie, though, yes. Not as good as a ducky tie, but, you know, we can't all be winners. Maybe I'll tweet at him that he should wear a ducky tie. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it now, actually. I'm going to do it now. Hang on. Oh, fuck it, I can't. Never mind. Yes, I will. I'll do it now. Give me a second. Load up Twitter. Right. Twitter. Right, it's not very clean. Here we go. At John Burko. Aha, no, that's not him. Hang on, I'll find him. John, hang on. Burko. Right Honourable John Burko Speaker. Is this him? Parody. Nope. I can't find him. Fuck it. Let's continue.
Across the country, people are worried about public services, their living standards, and rising levels of personal debt. While a third of...
personal debt is one of those things where some people either did it because they don't have the money, because they like to have money to spend and then spend it, not thinking about the consequences of that. Wonga loans were a perfect example of it, where some people would get one, it would solve the problem then, but then create a new problem because they'd have the debt interest on that to pay. Or they'd have it because they genuinely are stuck. Or because they're junkies. Maybe that's the same as the first one. They genuinely need it, or because they're reckless. If he's fighting for the rights of those who are genuine, then perhaps he has a point. But if he's going for both and all just because #all, no. Do Tories count 1 hour a week as someone fully employed? Yeah, they probably do. He's told to have a Twitter. He's the kind of guy I expect to have a Twitter. I mean, Corbyn's got one. That's probably manned by this man. Sorry, this one. I think.
Her government are at the Billionaires' Jamboree in Davos. She says she's listening, but rules out changes on the two issues where there might be a majority. Again,
because they are not issues, they are preconditions for you to even consider going to Downing Street to have a conversation. You want no deal off the table. Well, you now have about 2 months. That's all you have to pull Diane Abbott's gigantic white strap-on, because I think she's that kind of woman, out of your anus. Stop using it to clean your tonsils from that way up, and go sit down and talk to her, to Theresa May, and let her fuck you with her giant black strap-on. It's like chess with dildos.
Against no deal and for a customs union. Part of Labour's sensible Brexit alternative. If the Prime Minister is serious about finding a solution, which of her red lines is she prepared to abandon? Could she name a single one?
I want you all to imagine Jeremy Corbyn being spit roasted by Diane Abbott and Theresa May. Oh, and the red line bullshit. Yeah, it's absolute bullshit. She needed to stop that long ago. But I kind of got it, looking tough for negotiations. So I kind of got the need for them to exist. It's just a shame that, you know, it backfired because she was shit at negotiating.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, he makes claims about mines being closed. He asks about red lines. Why doesn't he just come and talk about it? He talks about people up and down this country. He talks about people up and down this country and what they're seeing. Well, let me tell him what we've just seen this week. Borrowing this year at its lowest level for 16 years.
Which is an interesting point, because last year, borrowing was at a record low for 12 years. Which means that this year's borrowing has gone down more than 3 years earlier. Which is fantastic. Yeah. Abbott doesn't actually know how to do anything. He'd make a good Doctor Who.
The IMF saying that we'll grow faster than Germany, Italy and Japan this year.
Yep, I saw that. That was one of the sources I had linked. I was going to show you. It took a while to find it though, because it was hidden very well. But it does say that ours will grow faster than a number of countries, but there'll be a few ahead of us, US being one of them.
UN figures showing foreign direct investment in the UK up last year.
Although at the same time contradicting by saying us leaving the EU would mean we crash and possibly risk a recession. There were a number of articles on that. I will go and find them after the stream and link them for you in the description below.
Employment rate up, number of people in work up, wages up. And the biggest threat to all of that would be a Labour government.
As far as I'm concerned, by the way, before we go to the next question and then the two Ian Blackford paper touches questions, I don't know who won that. She evaded all his questions about the no deal, and he at the same time, he just, I don't know, it felt like he wasn't listening.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. North Warwickshire and Bedworth voted overwhelmingly to leave the EU in 2016. And from the many conversations I've had with constituents since then, if they were asked again, I'm in absolutely no doubt they would vote the same way again. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that there's no credibility at all for a second referendum? And actually what our constituents want to see is this Parliament doing what it promised it would by honouring the referendum result, which, as the benches opposite seem to have forgotten, was to leave the EU.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. Not just he and I and all members of the Conservative Party here in this House, but members of the Labour Party in this House stood on a manifesto to respect the result of the referendum and to leave the European Union. I've set out on a number of occasions my concern about returning to the British people in a second referendum. I think people gave that clear message. We asked them to make the choice, they made the choice, and we should deliver on it.
Ian Blackford.
I do get the, before Ian Blackford starts molesting paper, it's worth pointing out that all politicians have said that, they respected it, but many have either reneged or shifted the goalposts. By doing so, they've kind of put us in a bit of an odd position, because I'm not entirely sure what to do with half the crap they say, when they keep making vague suggestions while unironically attacking the deal for being vague, when they themselves don't show anything that has any concrete to it or substance to it. Let's watch the paper abuse. Everyone put your reams away, tuck them in, make sure they kiss goodnight and got their chastity belts on, because Blackford is coming to fiddle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join with the Prime Minister in marking Holocaust Memorial Day? It is important that we reflect on the inhumanity of man-to-man that took place both at that time and, of course, subsequently, most recently, with the Rohingya people. More has to be done to eradicate the risk that peoples throughout the world suffer from genocide.
Well said, Ian.
Mr. Speaker, last November the government published an economic analysis of Brexit. It looked at 4 scenarios, but it didn't include the Prime Minister's deal. Can I ask the Prime Minister, has she done an economic analysis of her deal?
That's actually a really good question. I've just realised he didn't touch the paper, but actually he's asked a really good question. Should there be an economic assessment, analysis, risk assessment, impact assessment, or whatever you want to call it, on the deal Theresa May is bringing forward? Now, that I have seen people commentate on it saying that it is a good deal, but I've also seen some say, economists say it's a good thing, some saying it's a bad thing, but there's not been any kind of study done. So it's a good question, actually, for once.
If the right honourable gentleman obviously looked carefully at the economic analysis, and he will have seen that in that economic analysis we did look at the impact of different issues in relation to the trade relation and set that out very clearly. And what it made absolutely clear was that the deal, the proposal that the government had put on the table was the one that was best in terms of delivering on the referendum and ensuring that we were maintaining people's jobs and enhancing the economy.
Ian Blackford.
I can only take it from that answer, Mr. Speaker, that there is no analysis on the government's plan. And when we reflect on the paper that came out last November, Brexit will lead to a loss of up to 9% of GDP throughout the United Kingdom, costing jobs.
Guess where he's going with this? I mean, it's rocket science. It's quite complicated, everyone. But I wonder if anyone can work out in which direction he's now about to go. Because we know what he's always said, and we know the risks because we knew that GDP would not be as high as it would be if we'd stayed in the customs union. It basically stayed in the EU. However, GDP wouldn't be well, it wouldn't be our problem anymore, would it? Because it'd probably just be given over to the EU to run. He's touching the paper. He is. He's molesting it.
Mr. Speaker, it is the height of irresponsibility for the Prime Minister to bring a deal to this Parliament, and we haven't seen the economic impact. People up and down the United Kingdom are going to lose their jobs, are going to lose economic opportunity because of the ideology of this government. It is important that this House stands up and reflects on this and reflects on the economic security of our citizens. We have to be honest with people. We need to go back to the people and have a people's vote and let them determine what they want to do.
The people will vote more than likely to leave again. And it will be heavily divided again. What are you going to do then? Stand up and go, well, the deal's not any good. Best 3 out of 5, everyone. Let's go back to the people. Because they don't know what they want either. So let's go back to the people. Anyway. Oh, blimey, it's only been 55 minutes. Blimey, I'm quicker than this time round. It's probably because I'm tired and I wanted to finish. Who knows? As far as I'm concerned, I'm so looking forward to Brexit being over now. Because it is... Can someone translate it? You fucking gimp. Amazing. Brilliant. There will be a stream tomorrow, hopefully, with Trupp's political recap. Hopefully by then I won't be as tired. So I will do my best to prepare for that. I think I'm done actually now. So thank you all very much for joining. And thank you all for listening.